can I make the not very earth-shattering observation that if you're explaining evidence supporting your belief, that argument is not made any stronger by your lying about it, especially if that belief includes the idea that your personal religion is 100% true. I'm referring here to a story that's been showing up on social media. Its origin seems to be Christian apologetics sites. It's then been forwarded all over the place by people who don't know how science works, don't know how to do a Google search, or would rather something sound good than be true. Or all three. I ran into it on a site called Command the Raven, but I've also seen it elsewhere, and all the versions I've seen are substantially similar. Here are a few excerpts edited only for length. For all you scientists out there, and for all the students who have had a hard time convincing these people regarding the truth of the Bible, here's something that illustrates God's awesome creation and shows He is still in control. Did you know that NASA's space programs are busy proving that what has been called myth in the Bible is actually true? Mr. Harold Hill, president of the Curtiss Engine Company in Baltimore and a consultant of the space programs, relates the following incident. One of the most amazing things that God has for us today happened recently to our astronauts and space scientists at Greenbelt, Maryland. They were checking out the positions of the sun, moon, and planets out in space, where they would be 100 and 1,000 years from now. We have to know this, as we do not want a satellite to collide with any of these objects in orbit. So we're off to a flying start with a claim that NASA has to be very careful about satellites in orbit around the Earth so that they don't collide with the Sun or Neptune or anything. You can see how that would happen. Computer measurements and data were run back and forth over the centuries when suddenly it came to a halt, displaying a red signal, which meant that either there was something wrong with the information fed into it or with the results as compared to the standards. They called in the service department to check it out, and the technicians asked what was wrong. The scientists had discovered that somewhere in space, in elapsed time, a day was missing. Nobody seemed able to come up with a solution to the problem. Which brings us to the awkward question of how you would know if there was a day missing, or what a missing day actually even means. Were the technicians sitting around monitoring satellite transmissions, and suddenly one of them got a horrified expression and said, "Wait, where the fuck did I put last Tuesday?" Then all the other technicians start looking under desks and behind doors and in garbage cans, and to no avail. Sure enough, last Tuesday is AWOL. Finally, one of the team, a Christian, said, "You know, when I was still in Sunday school, they spoke about the sun standing still." While his colleagues didn't believe him, they did not have an answer either, so they said, "Show us." He got a Bible and opened it at the book of Joshua, where they found a pretty ridiculous statement for anyone with common sense. There they read about the Lord saying to Joshua, "Fear not, I have delivered them into thy hand. There shall not be a man of them stand before thee." Joshua 10:8. Joshua was concerned because the enemy had surrounded him, and if darkness fell, they would overpower him. So Joshua asked the Lord to make the sun stand still. That's right. And the sun stood still and the moon stayed until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is this not written in the book of Joshua? So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven and hastened not to go down about a whole day. Joshua 10:13. And the astronauts and scientists said, "There is the missing day." So there was much rejoicing, until one of the scientists pointed out that it wasn't an entire day that had been found, it was 23 hours and 20 minutes. This left 40 minutes unaccounted for, which they said could mean trouble 1,000 years from now. Why that is, I don't know. So anyway, this sent the NASA folks back looking for the missing 2/3 of an hour, and you'll never guess where they found it. The Bible. See, I told you you'd never guess. As the Christian employee thought about it, he remembered somewhere in the Bible which said the sun went backwards. The scientist told him he was out of his mind, but once again they opened the book and read these words in 2 Kings. Hezekiah on his deathbed was visited by the prophet Isaiah, who told him he was not going to die. Hezekiah asked for some sign as proof. Isaiah said, "Shall the sun go forward 10 degrees or go back 10 degrees? And Hezekiah answered, "It is a light thing for the shadow to go down 10 degrees. Nay, but let the shadow return backwards 10 degrees. Isaiah the prophet cried unto the Lord, and he brought the shadow 10 degrees backward, by which it had gone down in the dial of Ahaz. 2 Kings 20:9-11. 10 degrees is exactly 40 minutes. 23 hours and 20 minutes in Joshua plus 40 minutes in 2 Kings accounted for the missing day in the universe, which would have been the cause for even more rejoicing if the entire thing hadn't been made up. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, and I mean a real one like they have at NASA, to find the whole story eye-rollingly ridiculous, but that doesn't mean that it's not still being circulated all over the place. I saw it 3 times on Facebook just in the last 2 weeks, and in fact, there's now even a Snopes page dedicated to it. In it, we find out that Harold Hill was indeed the president of Curtis Engine Company in Baltimore, Maryland, but that's pretty much the only thing about it that's true. First off, Hill wasn't a NASA consultant. It turns out that he was an evangelical Christian who had a fairly loose definition of the word true, and he had come across the Lost Day story in a book called The Harmony of Science and Scripture by Harold Rimmer. He decided the story would have more punch if he claimed that he had witnessed it himself, and he added the title of NASA consultant to give himself more standing. He repeated it many times in public speeches, and in fact included it in his 1974 book, Living Like a King's Kid. At that point, it seems like he may have repeated it so many times that he began to believe it himself. And now, with the amazing conduit of bullshit that the internet is, it's roared to life again. Snopes writer David Michelson has the following to say about it. To those who've given over their hearts to God and the Holy Word, this is a deeply satisfying legend. Faith is, after all, the firm belief in something which cannot necessarily be proved, a quality that can leave believers, especially those who find themselves in the midst of non-believers, feeling unsatisfied. As steadfast as their certainty is, they cannot prove the rightness of the path they tread to those who jeer at their convictions. And this is a heavy burden to shoulder. A legend such as the Missing Day Explained tale speaks straight to the hearts of those who yearn for a bit of vindication in this life. Being right isn't always enough. Sometimes what one most longs for is sweet recognition from others. Which may well be the case, but it doesn't take away from the problem that a devout follower of a religion that has as one of its fundamental teachings, thou shalt not bear false witness, has been circulating a story that's basically one long lie. And it makes me wish that Yahweh had seen fit to include as a corollary to the 9th commandment. And then thou shalt take 5 fucking minutes and do a Google search before thou postest this shit to Facebook. So anyway, NASA is not spending its woefully small budget trying to prove that the Old Testament is true. There's no evidence whatsoever of a lost day, and in any case, how would you show that a day had been lost 3,000 years ago? Against what clock would you judge this? So I'd be obliged if the people who think that God is going to bless them if they pass this nonsense around would just stop. Thanks. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a thumbs up. Our resources are down there, and please subscribe to our channel. Thank you.